Hello, welcome to another program of the series, Peace is Possible. I am your host, Joe Wasserman. Mary Compton is a dedicated peace activist. She is a member of the Greater New Haven Peace Council and Back from the Brink, Connecticut. Both are organizations working for peace and nuclear weapon disarmament in this very dangerous period. She is a grandmother and is well respected and loved by all who know her. Today, I will interview Mary Compton regarding what has been termed the Doomsday Clock. Welcome, Mary Compton, to Peace is Possible, and thank you for your peace advocacy. Please tell the viewers about yourself and your work for peace.
Thank you, Joe, for having me, and thank you and Carmen Worcester for the program Peace is Possible and all the work that you both do in the community on raising issues that people are not aware of. I started my peace involvement in 2003, 2004, especially with the nuclear weapons. I attended a film showing at the New Haven Public Library on nuclear weapons and the Habakasha. And we also had Habakasha visitors come to New Haven and share their stories. And it moved me very much to hear their stories. And the film had very graphic images that were disturbing. But what I took away from it all was the Habakasha's love for humanity and their desire for nuclear weapons to never happen to any other people, which they are still working at. And they'll have their 80th commemoration this August for Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, for the viewers, Hibakusha are the survivors of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
That's right, Joe.
What is the Doomsday Clock?
Well, the Doomsday Clock is very unique. It started off with the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists began a newsletter in 1945, and they transitioned to a magazine in 1947. And one of there was a scientist that worked there, Alexander Langsdorff, and his wife, Martil, was a landscape artist. And she had heard the scientists talking about their concern about nuclear weapons and how it would affect the world and people. And she designed the Doomsday Clock with that in mind, for the transition to a magazine from a newsletter in 1947. And so it's a symbol for people to act and to move on issues of nuclear weapon, and also reflects the it's not the end of the world. It's not, right now it's at 89 seconds to midnight. They moved it, but it's not doomsday yet, and we still have work to do. And that's, we can turn back the clock, and that's what we should focus on with this. For people that just see the clock, it maybe they could think of it as a reminder to and a call to action of the perils of nuclear weapons that we have to work on if we're going to survive on the planet.
We're at 89 seconds to midnight.
Yes.
And I know there's two issues of concern that are threaten our existence, threaten the existence of the human species, or threaten the existence of civilization as we know it. One is the danger of nuclear weapons and a nuclear war. We've come very close too many times. And the
Yes.
other is the rapidly accelerating climate change we're seeing around the world. So there's two threats to civilization as we know it, knocking on our door at 89 seconds. And you're right, it is a call for action. Um, what can be done to alert average people to the danger that of these two of these two threats to humanity?
Um, well, one of the things that can be done is that people need to educate themselves on nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons is an issue that all citizens should know about, and they should speak to their legislators uh, and senators about this. There is, I feel like I'm just rushing ahead here, but if I could just go back and um, and just talk a little bit about when the clock hands were set farthest from midnight was in 1991 with the end of the Cold War. And it's important to note that during that time, the United States and the Soviet Union signed the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which was the first treaty to provide for deep cuts to the two countries' nuclear arsenal. And that prompted the bulletin to set the clock to 17 minutes to midnight. Um, it is important to note that with the signing of these treaties, um, the clock moved. So the importance of people working, to support treaties and getting our government to do that is extremely important. So some of the things that people can do, um, you know, I just wanted to reiterate the importance of contacting our legislators about this. Back for there is a group that I'm part of, along with Joe and others. Uh, the Back from the Brink Connecticut hub um, has supported a House resolution that calls for leadership on protecting the planet from nuclear weapons. And this was initiated and introduced by Jim McGovern in Massachusetts. It's a halt for um, the the nuclear arms race, pursue disarmament diplomacy. Um,
Yes, what we advocated for is something called House Resolution 77 in the last session, which calls for the nuclear nations to work together to reduce the threat of nuclear war and work for nuclear weapon disarmament, no first use of nuclear weapons, take nuclear weapons off a hair trigger alert, cut the funding for modernization of nuclear weapons. We don't need to modernize our nuclear weapons stockpile. And also take launch authority out from one person. It shouldn't be in the hands of just the president,
that's
especially
right.
an unpredictable president like we have now.
Mhm.
So, what are your thoughts on the Code Pink proposal for a peace clock?
Um, well, I think that the peace clock and the doomsday clock are two different clocks. One is a call for action, and it also um, is a symbol that represents, what it's a historic symbol actually, because it represents what happened in 1945 with the Manhattan Project and how scientists became very disturbed and concerned about what was going on. And this was one way that they could, they wanted to alarm people and get this word out of, this horrific weapon of terror that, has been built. And so I see that the Doomsday Clock is a historic icon that it cannot be replaced by another clock, like a peace clock. A peace clock is fine if that's what, people want to work on. That's fine. But I think to replace the Doomsday Clock with the peace clock, I don't see that, um, as being helpful because people need to know the history of the doomsday clock. They need to know why it's not just something that, oh, we're close to blowing ourselves up. No, it's a call. It's an urgent call to people. Wake up, you know. Um, and some level, I was a little disappointed that the doomsday clock was not moved closer, but then again, I'm recognizing that, you know, there is a board that determines, how the clock is set, and they're examining, many issues, the climate change, artificial intelligence, and nuclear risk. So, and it also symbolizes to me, there's hope. It's not that close yet. So let's work hard to, get treaties passed and speak to our representatives and legislators about this. Um,
Great. Thank you. Yes. One thing I would suggest people can do is actually go to the Back from the Brink website, and that's
yes,
www.preventnuclearwar.org.
yes, it's true.
And you could actually find out more information. And we do have a hub. We do have a Connecticut hub, and you're invited to be a part of these meetings. We meet once a month. Um, Tell me about the Greater New Haven Peace Council.
Well, Joe, if I could just talk a little bit about Back from the Brink,
Sure.
because they just recently, came had a demonstration in Washington, D.C., a day of action to raise awareness about nuclear weapons and the threat of
Mhm.
nuclear war. And one of the things that they did was distributed a book by Annie Jacobson called
Mhm.
Nuclear War. And they gave these books to Congress and had many conversations with them. So this is, to take action on the issue. Um, so that's something that, we can support and encourage. And that's right, it's preventnuclearwar.org is their website. And we also in Connecticut had the Back from the Brink open meeting in West Hartford that was very well attended and was, very positive, and people wanting to work on local peace activists wanting to work on this issue. And there are many peace activists in the area that support um, nuclear abolition. Um, some of them I could list if you like, if you think that would be helpful to the audience. I could list them.
Maybe I'll just suggest the most important thing is to go to the website, and
Okay.
and you people could also contact me, Joe Wasserman, at 860-561-1897,
Good.
um, or joewass64@yahoo.com. And we could put you on the list to be contacted about Back from the Brink meetings and information that is happening. Thank you. Um,
Um,
so go ahead.
Joe, could I also talk about the Veterans for Peace?
Yes, what
The
tell
work
us
that
about
they're
Veterans for
doing?
Peace? Yes,
Yeah.
tell us about Veterans for Peace.
Veterans for Peace, and the Golden Rule, which is a sailing ship from the 1950s, has sailed around the world to stop nuclear weapon tests in the Marshall Islands in the 1950s. They recently sailed into New Haven's harbor in the summer of 2023 to, bring to communities their opposition to nuclear weapons and war. And their website is veteransforpeace.org. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and, I just think that it's important to recognize some of the people in our community that are working on this issue, but there's no real coverage of it. There's not enough coverage of it, you know. So thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, I would agree. We get very little discussion in what we call the corporate media which is owned by powerful and rich corporations and have advertisers from powerful and rich corporations about the issues around nuclear weapons and and um, and peace. I don't, there's almost a blackout on issues involving the threat of nuclear war. It's not mentioned. It's sort of in the background, but not explicitly mentioned in the news. This
Mhm.
danger, but it's obviously in the background. Um, and I think we need to break through the media silence on this. I would
Yes.
agree.
Yes.
Um, so what what else could people do in terms of getting involved?
Um, I think that, educating themselves is important on nuclear issues. Visiting some of those websites that we mentioned would be important for people to
Hmm.
check out. The other thing would be attending. If you know of local peace groups in your area and they're working on something, well, attend one of their, vigils or meetings, find out what they're doing. Um, every August 6th and August 9th, there are the Hiroshima and Nagasaki vigils that I know in New Haven we do that every year. I know in Hartford, your community does that. Attend one of those vigils and find out about nuclear weapons. Um, find out more about the history of nuclear weapons that isn't told in our history books, but is told by the people who have experienced it and also the peace activists who have been doing this for a number of years. You know, it's not that people are doing this, for nothing. I mean, there's a reason why people are out here, vigiling against nuclear weapons, you know.
Hmm.
So,
Thank you. You mentioned the what they call the INF treaty that was signed by Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan in
mm,
around 87. I forget the exact date. Um, People should be aware that that was a result of a major movement in this country, the nuclear freeze movement, where we
yes,
got 1 million people in Central Park.
yes.
Um, and so we need to generate that type of movement again.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what we're working to do. I mentioned before HRES 77, and it's going to be coming up in a new form this year. As of this taping, we don't have a number for it yet. But you could call your congresspeople and your senators just to raise concern about about the fact that we need to get the nuclear nations to start talking to each other about reducing the threat of nuclear war. We need to get these nuclear weapons off a hair trigger alert, which leaves very little time to decipher whether that blip on the screen is a mistake or an oncoming missile.
Hmm.
All these things that we should not be funding uh, the modernization of nuclear weapons. You could call in support of these types of things, and you could also call in support of them reading the book that was left. What was the name of that book?
Nuclear war.
Nuclear War. You could
Nuclear.
also, yeah, you could also remind the people who answer the phone to
Mhm.
have your particular House representative or our two senators um, read the book or
Yes,
look at it. So that would be
right.
another thing people could do and call to simply
Absolutely.
remind them to read the book. And it's called Nuclear War by
Annie Jacobson.
Andy Jacobson. So that's another thing people can do
Mhm.
is ask our congressional representatives to read the book. And we stay tuned because we should have a number very soon for the new resolution, which will be based on which will be very similar to the resolution to HRES 77 in the old session.
Mhm.
Um, so tell us more about the work you do for peace.
I wonder too, Joe, if the audience, I know in my work with nuclear weapons that at working for abolition and talking to people about it, that I wonder if many people think that, they really shouldn't get involved with foreign policy or nuclear weapons issues. But I just wanted to reinforce that citizens have a right to know about our foreign policies and nuclear weapons, and that it's actually our responsibility, to know about it. And so I would encourage people to learn more about nuclear weapons and the money that is spent on them with the federal budget. I mean, right now the federal budget is is giving more money to the military than for human needs. You know, uh, uh, that's insane. You know, um, so I just really want to encourage people to. You have a right to know. It's not too much, intellectual for you or whatever. You have a right to know about nuclear weapons and to learn about them and foreign policy. You know, it's okay. It's so I would just encourage people to do that. Um, One of the things that moved me when I was, getting started with the peace movement was reading another book by Jonathan Shell called The Unconquerable World. And he wrote about how the development of nuclear weapons um, brought about a change in our, it was a turning point for humanity to turn away from war and to begin to move because we have developed a weapon that is so powerful and so terrorizing that we have to turn away from it and move towards, diplomacy and uh, working together and to eliminate these weapons of mass destruction. Um, so, mm,
Yes, yes. The development of nuclear weapons changes everything.
yes, it
Changes
does.
everything. And there's always the potential that some of these hotspots in the world, like whether it be Korea or Ukraine or the Middle East or India, Pakistan, which doesn't get a lot of publicity, but it's
Mm,
also very dangerous, um, or this situation between the U.S. and China. Any of these situations could develop into a nuclear war. Um, so it's urgent that we get the nuclear armed nations to start talking to each other about reducing the threat of nuclear war.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh, mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yes.
Um, yes, I see the doomsday clock as just a warning, as the warning
Hmm.
out there, as the bird in the cage.
Hmm.
We need to take heed. Uh,
Yes.
we need to take heed.
Right, Joe.
Um, what what else do you think people should know about nuclear weapons?
I think learning about what I mean, it's very difficult learning about what happens to people, when a nuclear bomb is dropped, and the human what happens to us. It's not it's not something anyone really wants to to look at or view, but the nuclear weapons are here and they're being used as weapons of terror against us, whether we want to acknowledge it, holistically and say, you know, that's right, these weapons are here, we've got to get rid of them, or if some people may become apathetic, and that has happened, I think, with some recognition in the 60s and 70s with psychological numbing of people witnessing more of the images, from the atomic bombings and seeing what was done to the Hibakusha and the Japanese civilian, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki people. Um, that it makes it and it makes it if we don't acknowledge it, then we're not living uh, in a real space of acknowledgement. And it's hard to, because it can just be the weapons are so big, there's nothing we can do, or, well, if the bombs drop, there'll be some life that survives. But that's a very apathetic view, and you know, it's not helpful for people. It's not helpful for our minds to be caged into this uh, box of nuclear weapons that, is being used to, bully the rest of the world, and to bully all of us, really, Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, so. Yeah.
Yes. Um, I also want to mention the proposal by China in the UN. China has a policy of no first use. They would not be the first to use nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
And I believe Pakistan too is the other nation that has that policy. They're asking the other nuclear armed nations, including the United States and Russia, to also have that policy of no
Mhm.
first use.
Very good, yes.
Because we see the Russians threatening the use of tactical nuclear weapons, and the United States has also contemplated first use of nuclear weapons in Vietnam. It came out that Nixon was considering using a nuclear weapon in Vietnam.
Mm.
And there was also discussion about using a nuclear weapon in Korea
Mm.
and on other situations as well. I refer to Daniel Ellsberg's book, um, and I forget the name of the book offhand, but he talks about his involvement with the nuclear weapon badness when he was
Mhm.
working in the inner circles of the U.S. government. And he talked about the U.S. Contemplating first strike use. So moving away from first strike use is part of our resolution and should be supported. So we're moving towards the end. Are there any last comments, Mary, you'd like to say?
Um, well, uh, there's no, yes, I do. There's no shelter from a nuclear catastrophe. The shelter and security we need for a future world is found in all of us working, to support diplomatic relationships between all countries. And we need to do that, to work on that in order to achieve a world where nuclear weapons are not part of our lives in that way. So I would encourage people to find out about the freeze movement, because that was instrumental. If we didn't have the freeze movement, we wouldn't be having a discussion now, because you know, the work that was done in the past has come forward to where we are now. We just have to keep building on it and moving in the direction of a nuclear-free world.
Yes, I would agree. We came very close in the 80s due to the rhetoric we were hearing from Ronald Reagan. And there was actually one time when the Soviets took that rhetoric very seriously and put their put themselves on high alert. And I think we came a lot closer than the American people know in terms of a possible nuclear war in the 80s. And the nuclear freeze movement was critical in calming things down. But I want to thank Mary for spending the time with us and for your thoughts and for your peace activism. And I want to thank our audience, our viewers, for taking the time to hear us out on this very most critical issue. And well, looking forward to more programs in this series, Peace is Possible. Thank you. Bye-bye.